Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session of the Tragi-comedy of the Virtuous Octavia, done by Samuel Brandon in 1598. Yes, printed for William Ponsonby and are to be sold at his shop in St Paul's Churchyard, I say, in the 1598. And Samuel Brandon, we know so much about Samuel Brandon. We know nothing. Literally nothing. Samuel Brandon wrote this play. That is all anyone knows about Samuel Brandon, as far as I can tell. I've looked in at least one book, and I googled him, and they both say the same thing. So yeah, we know nothing about Samuel Brandon. If you know something about him, please return him to us now. Otherwise, we've got this play, the Virtuous Octavia, which we're going to read in 2 sessions, a relative quick time. With these wonderful readers here. A little bit of precursor material. This is Rome. We're with Roman figures here. We've got Octavius Caesar, generally known as Augustus, his sister Octavia, and we're very concerned about what Antony's up to. What Antony's got up to. Many of which details can be found in other plays that we've looked at. So we're getting a different angle on that, focusing in on Octavia, probably. We'll see how it goes. Reading today, Octavia and Sylvia is...
Hello, I'm Angela, historian based in London.
Reading Camilla, Titius, and the chorus at the end of Act 1 is...
Rachael, actor on the East Coast.
Reading Julia, Geminus, Byllius, and chorus in Act 2 is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I'm in the dark. About as much as we are about Samuel Brandon.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I would be reading stage directions, but there really aren't any. I'll vaguely introduce when each act happens. And this is one of those plays where sometimes the different scenes indicate that there's been a change of location, and sometimes that the scenes carry on. It's actually quite difficult to tell with some of the scenes whether they're new scenes or continuing action. So that's an interesting magical mystery tour that we will discover. I'm also going to read Caesar later on because I've got nothing else to do. So without further ado, going into Act 1 on stage, perhaps at this stage. We've got Octavia. We will at some point have Camilla, may be on stage already, and Julia may be on stage already. We shall see. So Octavia, Camilla, and Julia.
Camilla, now methinks this golden time invites our minds to bathe in streams of joy. See how the earth does flourish in his prime, whose livery shows the absence of annoy. These woods, how they bedecked with nature's pride, show inward touch of new conceived mirth. The pretty birds that in their coverts hide, free citizens even happy from their birth. How they rejoice! And every senseless thing even smiles with joy. The earth perfumes the air sweet nectar to the earth doth bring, and both with joy beget these children fair. How richly nature doth her wealth enrobe, giving each thing his beauty, form and grace, eye-pleasing green, circle of this our globe, great mirror of Apollo's youthful face, colour of life, youth's livery, how delight dwells still with thee, whiles we, whom reason named, but falsely named, and if I judge aright, princes of all the rest that nature framed, still subject are to sorrow's tyranny, slaves to mischance, vassals of fortune's power, bearing the yoke of endless misery, fair baits of time which doth us all devour, now raised aloft in honour's highest seat, yet in that height far short of sweet content, now thrown down headlong, be we ne'er so great, in gulf of grief which we may not prevent. Our pleasures, posting guests, make but small stay, and never once look back when they are gone, where griefs bide long and leave such scores to pay, as make us bankrupt ere we think thereon. Yet this same earth, with new-born beauties graced, doth say, methinks, in his dumb eloquence, thus shall you spring, 'mongst heavenly angels placed, when death's cold winter once has snatched you hence. These flowers do bid us in their language read in beauty's books how beauty is most frail, whose youthful pride th' untimely steps doth tread to death's black kingdom, dark oblivion's veil. These nature's choristers do plainly say, waste thus your time in setting forth his praise, who feeds, who clothes, who fills our hearts with joy, and from this dead earth does our bodies raise. Thus all their mirth are accents of our moan, their bliss full state of our unhappiness, a perfect map where only we alone may see our good, but never it possess.
Madame, as nature more than perfect is, and far more fair than that we fairest call, so you as their apparent to her bliss, chief treasurer of her perfections all, will show yourself most wise and most divine, in curious search of her most hidden will, and following but her footsteps, yet refine the universal secrets of her skill. Yet I admire your eagle-sighted eye, which hath truth's sun-bright circle so well known, in others' worth discerns each atom, forgetful most of what is most your own. These other creatures have their properties, which show their sire no miser of his store, but such great gifts our minds immortalize, as proud ambitious self can wish no more. And you, great lady, whose high honor flies with virtue's wings in admiration's air, towering in eagle's pitch above the skies, where vulgar thoughts are settled in despair. You whose designs have put out envy's eyes, whose lamp of virtue gives the purest light, you that enforce weak fame to royalize such high resolves as far surpass her might, you whose large praise makes naked virtue lower and tires report in painting out your story, you in whose lap doth stream the golden shower of all good fortune, gracing highest glory. Oh, how can you once entertain a thought that these high joys should stoop to sorrow's lure? Or how can true felicity be brought the smallest touch of passion to endure? Let those complain which suck misfortune's paps, who know naught else of virtue but the name, who seeming wise are snared in folly's traps, whose rash attempts breed swift ensuing shame. But you, heaven's day star, pillar of our bliss, oh, want you ever clouds of discontent, you are our joy, we all joys all should miss, did not your sunbeams guide our firmament.
Did not thy true love seal this precedent, I should suspect a serpent mongst the flowers, and hardly judge fair words from false intent. Poor bad truth, rich flattery pours down showers, but loyal ladies, do you think if faith that highest honour, joy's most sweet content?
It doth no doubt, for high and heavenly saith the proverb old, to which I give consent.
Then hear me speak, what I shall say by proof, and what experience printed in my heart. Perhaps a story for your own behoof, where I myself have played an actor's part. In youth, I thought, though falsely thought, that best which fairest seemed, and my aspiring mind disdained, though not with pride, that there should rest a mere born thought, within my thoughts confined, treading this path. I was at last desired by Lord Marcellus, for his spouse and wife, Marcellus, he whose worthy fame aspired to highest top of honour during life, if wealth, nurse of delight, might breed content. I had no want of store to make me glad, my greatness did ambitious thoughts prevent. Such high success Marcellus' honours had, proud Carthage knows, his youthful sword did pay large tribute of their souls to Stygian lake. His middle age the stoutest Gauls did fray. Marcellus' name made their huge armies quake. His ancient years made crafty Hannibal admire the proofs and valour of his foe. Thrice bitter name that cursed cannibal, by bloody treason made him life forego. 5 times this city graced my worthy lord, or rather he them graced with consul's name. What they to others sweets would scarce afford, they joyed to see my lord accept the same. Now, ladies, to forget my present state, did joy, think you this, while o'ercharged my mind? I joyed, I must confess, to see how fate with bounds of honour had my life confined. But when I found how monster envy feeds on highest honour as his daintiest prey, how brightest fire great store of fuel needs to keep his light and beauty from decay, when that I found the music of my mind tuned to the concord of Marcellus' bliss, and saw true valour had his life assigned to haughty Mars, whose course most dangerous is, I lived in him. He spent his royal days in bloody bosom of life's scorning wars. Safety may breed delight, not nourish praise. Hard is the way from the earth unto the stars. Whilst thus our state depended on his sword, and thousands sought his final end. Could my true love in all this time afford one quiet thought in perfect mirth to spend? So many perils as on earth are found, so many dangers as on raging seas, so many terrors all my joys confound, for true love, passions are no weak disease. But is this all? No, more if more may be. 'Tis greater care to keep than get a crown. Virtue doth raise by small degrees, we see, where in a moment fortune casts us down. And surely those that live in greatest place must take great care to be such as they seem. They are not princes whom sole titles grace. Our princely virtues we should most esteem, that sands on Neptune's shores and beamy stars do not exceed the number of those cares which in our minds do stir up civil wars and cross delights accounts at unawares. Let this suffice. The tempest soonest tears the highest towers, and who will mount aloft, the more he climbs, the more his footing fears. Often he slides, but seldom falleth soft. What words can paint the infinite of woes? What tongue can half those miseries relate, which thundering fortune threatened to impose upon my head at tarrant but of late? When as mine eyes mought see, though loath to see, the suns with whose eclipse my fortune changed, my own dear lord and brother, both to be in mortal arms against each other ranged, which tempest calmed, the storm begins again, on mischief's main full sails mishap doth bear. I know not now what doth my lord detain, but for I know not, I know cause to fear. To visit him at last I was contented, and in those foreign coasts to make appeal. But my access at Athens he prevented, which makes me think more than I will reveal. And can I then with sorrow's weight oppress, think to enamel my conceit with joy? Can I, that am with fortune's rack distressed, hope to escape the ocean of annoy? Why, this is joy, to taste no sense of death, till dying hour have stopped our vital breath.
'Tis true delight to know no cause of grief, though the outward signs of joy be small. Who most rejoicing feels that inward thief, with stained conscience finds no joy at all.
Indeed, I think true joy, a severe thing, a thing severe, springing from fountain of a virtuous mind, from spotless faith and conscience pure and clear, the chiefest good the heavens have us assigned. For us some weep that are not passing sad, so many laugh that are not rightly glad.
And that's the end of that scene in Act 1. We've got it's interesting. It's like a little painting at the beginning. Octavia just going, well, isn't this lovely? Look, we're in the woods. There are birds singing. There's clear. Isn't it lovely? Don't get too happy. Don't enjoy happiness when it, don't get complacent. Because bad things can happen. Let me tell you a story about what happens when bad things could happen, or the complexity of power and things. So, yeah, it's an interesting little scene. How are we feeling about it? There's no point us saying that it's got long speeches. It's that kind of play. It's just what it does. It's one of those nice neoclassical works where people come on, they make speeches. Some interesting lines coming out of it. This is joy to taste no sense of death till dying hour have stopped our vital breath. That's one to put on a t-shirt, isn't it? It's nice, cheerful sort of, almost fatalistic sort of turn of thought. So yeah, thoughts in the room. Anyone want to leap in? Silence reigns. All stunned. Eric.
Yeah, I mean, I am stunned because I'm not entirely sure what they're talking about. I was like sitting through that going, okay, I get the thing about the imagery and all that stuff. And then I think I got lost in the imagery, to be fair, especially the first two speeches. It was kind of, it felt a bit like a debate play, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, Angela.
I mean, it was funny because the way that Camilla speaks to Octavia is kind of almost like you would speak, to a kind of divine being. It's quite, it's oddly sort of worshipping, as it were.
You.
Yeah, you are our joy. You are our this, that, and the other. And then Octavia says, well, actually, I'm really miserable because my husband, Marcellus, is at war with my brother. And he wouldn't see me when I tried to see him in Athens. That's what she seems to be saying. That's the action I thought I spotted.
Yeah, it's almost a backstory, isn't it? There's just, here is the example of this is someone who's out there doing things and is never certain actually that you can never be comfortable in happiness. That seemed to be the point that was being made. But you're right in the sense it's sort of building backstory and stuff, but nothing's really happening yet. It's setting up these characters. Setting up Octavia anyway, who, it does seem to be surrounded by handmaidens who are just going, you are lovely, aren't you lovely? You are lovely, lovely. Rachael.
I was going to say, I'm not sure where the next scene will take us. So maybe this is not the direction it's in, but maybe, her husband's already left for Cleopatra. And they're trying to, raise her. They're telling her she's so lovely because that's, she feels terrible. Her husband's cheating on her, and I'm sure she's blaming herself for something that's not really in her control.
You may be leaping ahead, yes. I don't think that we're there in the narrative, but I think she's aware of the danger of being too happy. I was just checking whether she was actually married to Marcellus or whether it was I was at last desired for his spouse and wife. Whether actually that actually occurred, it doesn't actually make very clear. I don't know the periods, this particular relationship, so I don't actually know. I'm assuming they were. It was just phrased in a funny way. They made me suddenly doubt it. Other thoughts? Otherwise, we'll crack on and see if the play gives us more data. Which we will. Oh, Rachael.
I don't know. I'm on Wikipedia looking up like the second the second whatever wars with Hannibal, and there is a consul named Marcus Claudius Marcellus. So I'm not sure if it's referring to him, but the historical one, I'm so confused. I should just look up Octavia.
Yeah, I'd say I don't think they actually married. I think he just liked the idea. I don't know if it actually happened. Anyway, she's virtuous. That the title has told us it is so. Act 1, Scene 2. We now have 2 other characters. We're going to let this maybe run into the next scene to see if the 2 scenes actually go together. I don't know if they do or not. But we have a little discussion between Geminus and Titius.
Say, worthy Titius, what rare accident in so short time did bring to happy end the cruel wars, which Caesar's discontent against Lord Antonius lately did intend? How could so many weapons thirsting blood be satisfied with unexpected peace? What powerful stars importuned us such good, and did their anger's tyranny suppress?
That will I do, my good friend Geminus, and much the sooner, for that you may know, no force or weapons hath procured us the happy truce wherein we glory now. It was the time when the declining sun made greatest show of least performed light, and by his swift departure had begun to yield his interest to the encroaching night, when as the seas, even burthened with our weight, delivered us unto the perfect view of dreadful Tarrant, wherefore us did wait. Antonius' fleet, with all their martial crew, there did our drowned anchors make us stay within the jaws of danger's tyranny. There we discovered by the flying day the agents of our threatened misery. Who can express the horror of that night when darkness lent her robes to monster fear, and heaven's black mantle banishing the light made everything in ugly form appear, until Aurora, with fair purple flowers, like loving spouse, had strawed Titan's way, whose glorious beams began to gild the towers as joyful post of pleasure-bringing day. Then did loud martial music charm asleep each languishing conceit and doubtful breast, and new-born comfort now began to creep in every mind, with causeless fear oppressed. Then pride of honor made us scorn our foes, and courage added wings to our desire. To present fight, we all ourselves dispose with bloody showers to quench insensate ire. But ere our armies had their charge fulfilled, ere weapons had our inward rage expressed, lo, where Octavia comes into the field, twixt both our armies she herself addressed, where with the nectar of her eloquence, with words that mought relent endurant frost, with majesty and beauty's influence, she stays our captains and affronts each host. Oh, how I see that wonder-breeding face, oh, how I hear those heart-enchaining words, oh, face, oh, words that merit highest grace. Immortal sure, base earth none such affords, no woman's weapon blinds her princely eye, no woman's weakness her tongue's passage stays, like one that did both death and fate defy. Minerva-like she stands, and thus she says, here will I bide, and this same breast oppose to all your weapons, and whose wicked hand shall first begin to assail or strike his foes, shall strike this heart and break his vital band. No bloody deed Octavia's eyes shall gain, a witness of your loathed cruelty, but through this body shall the first be slain that in this battle is compelled to die. If honor, virtue, worth, or piety live in your minds, which bear such lofty names, return your weapons and hear quietly, with reason, quench the force of angry flames. Else let some bloody executioner first rob this jealous tomb, of loathed life, and then no longer need you to defer the issue of your more than mortal strife. Much more she said, which none but she can say, and with her sugared speech so much prevailed that like Medusa's marbled creatures they amazed stood, so was their fury quailed. Look how the trident scepter bearing king his oft rebelling subjects doth suppress, and with a sudden beck in order bring their disproportion with a quiet peace. When that the pride of some truce wanting storm doth summon up their treason working power, now gracing terror with huge mountains form, now with steep whirlpool seeking to devour, so stood the emperors with her words amazed, her words which seemed the mirror of her deed. As men enchanted, so on her they gazed, and in her face new lectures 'gan to read. But when she saw her words did take effect, then poured she forth the quintessence of wit, and never did her enterprise neglect, till both the emperors bewitched with it, not only did forget all former hate, but even there, before Octavia's face, a league of friendship they did consummate, and lovingly each other did embrace. Oh, what a joyful sight 'twas to behold a dangerous fight turned to a dainty feast, to see how friends salute each other could, that but even now each other did detest. There did both armies sport in great delight, and interchangeably their loves express, as captives foiled without blood, wound, or fight. They praise the conquest, and the victor bless. Then did Antonius for Octavia's sake give unto Caesar 20 brigantines, which Caesar did in courteous manner take, and in requital of his kind to designs, did twice 500 armed soldiers give to Anthony. And quickly one mote find, the sparks of emulation made them strive, who mote do most to please Octavia's mind.
Oh, noble deed, deserving highest praise, well worthy to outlive all memory. Life-saving empress, how thy wisdom stays, even swarms of souls from Pluto's tyranny. But why did not Antonius in like sort return to Rome to pay delight her due?
He presently towards Parthia did resort, against their king the wars for to renew, and recommend all his own affairs, his wife, his children, and what else was dear, to Caesar's best disposing. He repairs to Syria, and intends to winter there.
Rome, thou that keeps the pearl that doth include heaven's dearest treasure in earth's finest frame, be never so ungrateful to obtrude night black oblivion to her noble name.
We're just going to pause there briefly. So yeah, we're getting plot. Now we're getting the exposition of things. So Caesar and Antony having a bit of a face-off, but Octavia steps between them and says, "Look, no, don't have a fight." And they become friends again, and it's great. And Antony goes off to do some other stuff. Doesn't go to Rome, heads to Parthia, going to do some warring there. Repairing to Syria later. So yeah, I'm sure this is all 100% true, because as we've already know from earlier, Octavia is great. All her servants say so. So this all must be absolutely true. Any thoughts in the room, very briefly? Anyone want to throw in? Yeah, we're definitely getting reported speech from Octavia again. We've had that in other plays of this ilk. This sense of setting a scene. There's some really nice storytelling stuff. When they're into storytelling rather than sort of abstract stuff, I really like it. I really enjoy some of that.
I feel like a little light bulb went ping. I understood what was going on.
Yeah, because they're telling a story, and it's very clear. I mean, that's the thing. As earlier, Octavia was telling this story about this guy from my past, who Marcellus, and to talk to you about an abstract thing. None of this is really relevant to the plot that's actually going forward. Whereas this is action. Even if it's action off stage, it's action, and it's plot, and it matters in a way. So it gives you something to grab hold of. Onto. That's the one. Yes, Eric.
I love how basically the prompt for all these is tell me more about this situation. It's not like sort of, it's kind of like I wasn't there, just so what happened?
Well, they didn't have, newspapers or the internet then, they have to ask these questions. They have to get people to tell them stuff. Okay, we're going to go straight into the next scene. I paused because it does seem to be a separate scene, I think. I'll find out in a second. Has to be just simply because we've got the doubling we're doing now. So Camilla returns from earlier, but is talking to Geminus from the previous scene. So it feels like there's a slightly different unit of action going on here. Let's find out how it flows, because someone's now asked. Geminus was asking the questions of Titius, but now Camilla is asking a question of Geminus.
Come, Geminus, and unto me relate what made the Empress alter her intent. What did your voyage thus abbreviate, and all your expectations prevent? Fame, bad concealer of our close intents, said that the Empress would to Syria go, to see Antonius, who himself absents, but your return doth show it was not so.
Madam, when Aeolus had once conveyed our moving houses unto that same place where noble Cecrops the foundations laid, which are the Grecian confines' chiefest grace, there, long before we could approach the gates of that fair city, we encountered with people of all ages and estates, who in their hands did boughs of laurel bear. Some on their knees with joy and wonder filled, salute the Empress, some rich gifts present. Some strawed the way with flowers, and some distilled their sweet perfumes along the fields we went. Thus the city we were guarded straight, wherefore our coming all the states await. There were our eyes invited to behold most sumptuous shows with many pleasing sighs. There did we hear their learned tongues unfold, the muses' skill with ravishing delights, their loud applause, which pierced the very skies, extolled Octavia past the reach of fame, and silent echo wakened with their cries toward all the neighbor hills to bless her name. Thus frankly did 2 days themselves bestow to gratify our entertainment there, whilst Antony, who, as it seemed, did know of our approach and therefore stood in fear, sent Niger unto Athens with all speed, who to Octavia letters did convey, requiring her no further to proceed, but for his coming in that place to stay. For thither meant he shortly to repair, and therefore would not she should undertake so long a journey, which more to much impair her health and quiet, bootless for his sake. She, half suspecting as there was good cause, that this was but a practice of delay, though unwilling, yet she made a pause, as one that knew not how to disobey. But finding all his words to want effect, and seeing nothing more his mind recall, such things she doth unto him straight direct, as she had brought to pleasure him withal, which was 2,000 chosen men at arms, great store of horses, wont to win their price, much armor to defend themselves from harm, as richly wrought as cunning could devise, gifts to reward his best deserving friends, a sum of money for his soldiers' pay, and briefly or all her care and study bends, to save his waning honor from decay. But when she saw naught more his thoughts recline, unkind, said she, senseless of thine own shame, I'll be myself, since thou wilt not be mine. Thus she concluded, and away we came.
O peerless paragon, nature's pride, fair cabinet, Where wisdom's treasure lies, earth's glory, and the heavens' beloved bride, rich seat of honor, virtue's paradise. Most noble empress, praise of womankind, whose faith endures the rage of fortune's flame, whose constant truth and truly virtuous mind scorns smallest touch of just deserved blame. How natural and undivided are the sparks of honor in a noble heart. How industrious and wit may not compare with that true touch our birthright doth impart. Live, virtuous empress, mirror of our age, though chance discharge whole volleys of reproach, with fortitude withstand proud fortune's rage. Let not despair near thy sweet thoughts encroach. Time must needs turn thy mourning unto joy, for true delight from hence his spring doth take, when we with patience suffer sharp annoy, not for our merits, but for virtue's sake.
And we'll just take a brief pause as Rachael takes a moment to compose herself to be the chorus to close the act. So, Rachael, take it away.
Heavens, hear poor earth complain, how we your frowns do bear, when all things else rejoice. Joy scorns with us to dwell, and reason's self can tell, each mirth discovering voice assures our judging ear, how all things else want pain, sense following creatures know no cause why to lament. In them remorse doth sow no seeds of discontent. We see and know but want our bliss, unperfect nature causeth this. Yea, nature most unkind, contriver of our fall, begins our life with tears and ends the same with woe. Grief, pleasure's mortal foe, confounds our hopes with fears and sows our sweet with gall. This tyrant of the mind, by reason, wit, or skill, can never be withstood. These aggravate our ill by showing what was good, and want of that torments us most, whose worth appears in being lost. Were nature falsely named a stepdame to mankind, that sex which we account unperfect, weak, and frail, could not in worth prevail, and men so far surmount. We should Octavia find in some sort to be blamed. She wins immortal fame, whiles he who should excel dishonored hath his name, and by his weakness fell. For doubt, shame he doth deserve, for double shame he doth deserve, who being guide doth soonest swerve. And Lord Antonius, thou thrice woman-conquered man, shall not thy heart repine their triumphs to adorn? Octavia's virtue scorn, that wanton life of thine, and Cleopatra can command thy ghost even now. And fain would I refrain from Fulvia's stately name, which doth thy manhood slain, and makes thee blush for shame. In this one thing yet happy mayst thou be, they princes are that triumph over thee. Dwell in fame's living breath, to eternity resigned, yea, fair Mars conquering whites, and fear not Lethe's flood, your virtues always bud, your story honor, rights, and phoenix-like you find a new life in your death. Arm but your angel souls with perfect virtue's shield that Thanatos controls and makes Erinus yield. Then shall the heavens your worth descry, earth sing your praise, and so will I.
You know what? Isn't Octavia great? The everything about her is great. Isn't it great? You've got so much to put up with. Really great. Keeps telling us how great Octavia is to at great length. It has to be said. I don't know who said in the chat. I think it was Eric. He was laying it on a bit thick. It's a weird sort of structure to it, and I'm wondering about the placement of that first scene. About that sort of, we get story of Octavia talking to Caesar and Antony, we get this story about Antony going, "No, don't visit. I'm fine. You don't need to visit. It's you don't need to visit. It's okay." A scene that doesn't, which awkwardly follows the previous one, because it sort of features similar characters and the way it flows. I don't know if there's a solution to any of that. I'm just wondering whether that whole thing about Octavia being anxious, actually going back to Rachel's point about Cleopatra, makes more sense if it's actually slightly later on. I just wonder if just simply it's the scenes are in the wrong order. I don't know if that actually works or not. I'm just wondering about it at this point, because yes, it looks like Antony is off. It's mostly by inference. They keep not actually saying who people are, but Cleopatra does get a name check at the end of the act, so we can assume that that's the great fear here. Rachel.
Yeah, I think maybe if we did a second look of this and you wanted to try moving that scene a little later, I think it could work, because where it currently is, it seems more like not a prologue, but some sort of scene to set up, tension or make it ominous, which I don't know if it necessarily lands the best where it currently is. Instead of setting it up in that way, it might come out, better later on in the first act. And to start off with her in the middle of, instead of starting it off with people telling us how great she is, how high her virtue and her honor is, that scene where it's being said that, she's in between these two armies and, putting her hands up and saying, "Stop," is such a strong image, I think, to start with, that might hook people in more so than the first scene, or not hook people in. I'm not exactly sure where the rest of this is going to take us, but the tone of that first scene is so different from the rest of this, which seems has to have a slightly more martial bent because of the man that she's married to and the men that she's related to, who are generals, in addition to being these political leaders. And maybe to show her as that sort of martial figure makes sense, because even for Rome, women on the military battlefields, I think Caligula's mother was known for that she was known for, I think his father was Germanicus, which or one of those guys, or Drusus, I don't remember, and she used to follow the camp around.
Yeah, I think you're bang on there. It's that sense of Octavia's had a very clear effect on military policy, on what's going on, who's in charge of things. May this be contrasted with a figure who's been mentioned in passing to their detriment. So it's. It could all be a bit awkward. We'll see what the opinions of Cleopatra. I'm just going to say, I'm not assuming that there's going to be a massive contrast between Cleopatra and Octavia here, but I suspect there might be. Any other thoughts, Octavia? They're saying lovely things about you. Yes.
It's interesting that they, in that chorus speech, there is this suggestion that she's so good that she should be blamed because she's a woman, and because she's more honourable than her man, and he's the one who's supposed to lead and she's supposed to follow. So it's interesting that there is just a little moment there when it says, here she is, a mere frail woman, actually being more honourable than the men. So it's kind of quite interesting that it's having to deal with that problem for patriarchy.
Absolutely. Let us go into Act 2 and gather some more data. Let's see where this is going. So we have the return of Octavia and the arrival of Byllius or Byllius. Byllius. I don't know whether the name is supposed to be suggestive of a character trait or whether it's just a chap with that name. I don't know how it's pronounced. Act 2, Scene 1, Octavia and Byllius.
Right. O thrice and four times happy messenger, hast thou from Parthia made return of late? Canst thou declare the issue of the war, and make me know Antonius' happy state? What cause my lord in Syria make such stay, since he gainst Parthia did his forces bend? When does he mean towards Rome to make his way, and to those wars impose a final end? Unkind he is. Not so, but distant far, and his great trouble much my good impairs. Else wouldn't he not mine ears so long time bar from much expected news of his affairs?
Madam, these eyes have seen what hath been done in Syria, Parthia, and each other place. I present was when Lord Antonius won 18 great battles in a little space. I often saw when mischief in the field had all her force against my lord brought forth, how he with valor made even fortune yield, and chance wait on well-approved worth. I was in Media when Phraates slew great Titanus, fighting for my lord. Sorry, I just so wrong. Great. I was in Media when Phraates slew great Titanus, fighting for my lord. I saw when he our engines from us drew and put 10,000 Romans to the sword. I was in presence when a sudden fear in the blackest horror of the darkest night, so much astonished all that present were with shrieking cries that mote even stones affright, that Antony with fear of treason moved, made Ramnus humbly swear upon his knee to strike that head so much beloved from off his shoulders, when he once should see unevitable danger to lay hold upon himself. Yet could not all this quell his haughty courage, but as uncontrolled he still proceeds his stoutest foes to sail, and having now summed with the Parthian blood the largest scores of wrongs we did sustain, thence to retire he now thought it good, and for a time at Blankburg to remain. Blankburg, a city near to Sidon placed, unto the which our whole camp did resort. There he intends to stay, and not in haste to visit Rome, as most of them report.
Well, what should move my lord thus long to stay?
Another's tongue much better yet bewray.
What dost thou know more than thou hast yet said?
Madam, no more.
Why then am I dismayed? Why do I see thy sorrow-clouded brow seem to conceal I know not what annoy? Say, Byllius, whence those troubled looks may grow? Is my Antonius safe? Does he enjoy that body free from hurt, wound, or disease? Does he yet live and draw his vital breath? Speak, quickly speak. Truth cannot me displease, where now suspicion wounds as deep as death.
It cannot be but that your grace doth know, for what can be concealed from prince's ear? And further speech more speeds of discord so between your highness and my lord, I fear.
Oh, how delay torments a doubtful mind! I know, no, he procures I may not hear of anything from thence, whereby I find, although unknown, yet double cause of fear. Then banish doubt, and see thou plainly tell what strange occasion doth enforce his stay. What can Antonius' princely mind compel in foreign coast to make so long delay?
Madam, the cause that made him to remain in Syria so long time, when as we went towards Parthia, is the same that doth detain his highness now, and thus your grace prevent.
Am I an empress, still thus disobeyed? And dost thou dare to dally with me still? I first enquired what him in Syria stayed. Why dost thou fear to tell the worst of ill?
If this likewise be hidden from your grace, in humble sort of pardon I beseech, that high displeasure against me not take not place, for what shall be disclosed by my speech.
I pardon all, so long as all be true.
Who doth delude, let sharp death be his due. Then if you list the truth to understand, the truth is this, that fond Egyptian Queen Cleopatra, doth your will withstand, and him detains who else had present been.
By force?
No, oh no, worlds could not him constrain to stay this long in any place by force. But his affection is the loving chain that from your highness doth his mind divorce.
What chilling fear doth stream along these? What frozen terror makes me thus to quake? What monstrous grief, what horror thus constrains veins? My stiving heart his lodging to forsake. Tell me, from what conceit may this be get?
They live together, who knows not the rest?
I must believe it. Sore against my will.
Hardly we credit what imports are ill.
But slow belief from wisdom doth proceed.
But mortal wounds of present cure have need.
Some fond report hath made thee falsely deem.
I shun report and lightly its esteem, but this I saw when we to Syria came. Antonius straight to Cleopatra sent a messenger. Fontanus was his name, whose swiftness did even hast itself prevent. More than we knew not, but within short space came Cleopatra royally attended and met directly at the appointed place, which for their stay they had before pretended. And there they did sport a time in great excess of all delights which hath any eye hath seen. And there Antonius his great love to express did frankly give to this Egyptian queen. Phoenicia, Cyprus, and Cilicia, part of Arabia where those people dwell called Nabateans, part of Syria. And finding that she could prevail so well with Antony, she further did proceed, and begged part of that land we jury call. From whence mote we be transported at her need, true balm for to preserve her grace withal. This done, my lord towards Parthia took his way, which we with fire and sword did waste and burn. But in those confines did not long time stay, but back again to Blankburg we return. From whence a post was readily addressed for to conduct this Cleopatra thither. She kindly condescends to his request. Thus there they met, and there they lived together.
Oh, what heart-piercing grief doth then torment, that art thou thus counter-checked with rivals' love? What worlds of horror do themselves present unto their minds that do like passions prove? Oh, jealousy, when truth once takes thy part, what mercy-wanting tyrant so severe? What Scylla, what Charybdis can impart but half those horrors which in thee appear? Poor Pluto, why do we thy rigour dread? All torments are contained within my breast. Alecto doth whole troops of furies lead within my soul, with endless grief oppressed. O deserts, now you deserts are indeed. Your commonwealths are couched within my heart. Within my heart all ravening beasts do feed, and with mad fury still increase my smart. O grief, I feel the worst that thou canst do. I taste the powerful force of mischief's pride. I prove the worst that chance can put me to. The dearest wound of fortune I abide. But stay, Octavia. If this be a lie, if thy dear lord do constant yet remain, whom dost thou wrong? Is it not Antony? O fault too great, recall it back again. Canst thou be so unkind, nay, so unjust, to censure, judge, condemn without a cause? Shall flying tales make thee so much mistrust him bound to thee by God's and nature's laws? O traitor passion, if thou couldst subdue thy sovereign reason, what ill tragedies wouldst thou soon act! But jealousy adieu, my lord is constant, and these are but lies. Do not he swear on that our nuptial day? Did not he swear on that our nuptial day? By all the sacred rites we holy deem, by those immortal powers which we obey, by all things else which dearly we esteem, by his right hand, by this our wedding ring, by all that naught a perfect truth intend. One time, one day, one hour, should surely bring his life and love unto a final end. Did he not say the stars from heaven should fall, the fishes should upon the mountains range, and Tiber should his flowing streams recall, before his love should ever think on change? But what of this? These are but only words, and so are those which do his faith impeach. Oh, poor Octavia, how thy state affords naught but despair to stand within thy reach. The seat of truth is in our secret hearts, not in the tongue, which falsehood oft imparts. Haste back then, Tiber, to thy fountain's head. Descend, ye stars, and this base earth adorn. Let Neptune's people on these hills be fed, for Antony is fled, false and forsworn. Oh, but 'tis not so. My Antony is true. His honour will not let him basely fall. Octavia's name will faithful love renew. His innate virtue will his mind recall. As fear of torment holds the wicked in, so virtue's love makes good men loathe their sin.
Madam, I cannot force you to believe that which I speak, but that I speak is true. I knew too well it would your highness grieve, and it would be loath your sorrows to renew. But would to God all my words were lies, so my disgrace mote or work your sweet content. Would this my soul mote be the sacrifice to reconcile his love thus fondly bent? O virtue, thou that didst my good assure, arm now my soul against proud fortune's might. Without thy succor I may not endure, but this strong tempest will destroy me quite. O sacred lamp, pure virtue's living flame, that never fails sweet comfort to impart. I feel thy power and glory in the same. I hear thee say in closet of my heart, Octavia, live and show thyself a queen. Tread thou my path. Tread thou thy path? Makes more sense. Tread thou thy path, make constancy thy guide. Let no base fear within thy mind be seen. Let thine own foot into no error slide. Make thine own thoughts of no witness of thy miss. Let thine own conscience no cause of blame. A bulwark strong, a brazen wall this is, that will resist both sorrow, grief, and shame. Antonius fall, his own disgrace procures. His is the fault, and on his head shall fall the storm of mischiefs and deep revenging showers, when thine own worth in heaven shall thee install. His is the fault, but what? Mine is the wrong, the error his, but I endure the smart. O virtue, if thou be so passing strong, yet once again remove this from my heart. Why, virtue grieves but at his own disgrace, and mind's distress with patience doth relieve. With wisdom's light it still guides his pace, and cannot fall there, and therefore cannot grieve. Well, grief, I feel that thou art grief indeed, but patience is a prince and must not yield. Oh, sacred virtue, help me at my need. Repulse my foes, and with all thy repulse my foes with thy all mastering shield. But what? I must not stand here and lament. Thy deeds, Octavia, must prove thy worth. 'Tis wisdom must these injuries prevent. I will no more excuse thy wrongs henceforth. I'll seek by all means thee to reconcile, and in my thoughts revenge shall find no place. But if thou needs wilt work a thing so vile, to seek my ruin and thine own disgrace, If nothing can prevail, I'll make it seen. Thou wrongest an empress and a Roman queen.
I think we've missed a speech prefix for Octavia at some point in that speech,
Yeah,
haven't we?
that sounds.
I've because when you're going my and surely thy, and I'm going okay, so something's gone wrong there. I don't know where the switcheroo happens. It might be remarkably quickly after Byllius says, "I can't make you believe me." Well done for trying to make that make sense from your character's perspective. I really think it's not you. I thought I'd caught all
Definitely
of those.
Octavia.
Some of that's Octavia. Okay, from where I will check for next time. Not
Yeah, I think it's really early on in the speech.
It must be.
I think it must be. I wish all my words were lies. So my disgrace might work your sweet content. With this my soul might be the sacrifice to reconcile his love thus fondly bent. I think it might be there, O virtue.
Maybe.
Anyway, I'm sure it will be apparent once I hunt for it. These things do occur.
Hold on. Oh, sorry. His is the fault, but what I think is where she begins, because the messenger says his is the fault, and on his head shall fall. When thine own worth, because I think the messenger's speech ends when thine own worth in heaven shall thee install.
I'm sure we'll be able to find the correct place. I'm assuming that's just basically my error that I've accidentally deleted it. I don't think it'll be a printing error, but it could be. The internet will tell me. The internet will tell me.
But you did a great job, Eric, so well done.
Yeah. It's going back to the
Yeah,
scene, the rest of the scene as writ. I mean, it's a fairly straightforward scene in the sense of she's going, well, you know, how's Anthony? When we, when can we meet up? And it's like, yeah, Anthony, he's gone through some stuff, man. I saw it. He's been through things. Let's not talk about the whole meeting up with Anthony anytime soon. Let's talk about other things. And it's just going, yeah, but why hasn't he come? And it's just, yeah, okay, Cleopatra. And yeah, Octavia does not want to believe that. Really does not want to go there. Does not want to go there. And it's weird because this is sort of at the same time, but slightly after, but maybe before what happened in the sort of the end of Act 1. It's sort of, I was sort of going, where does this go narratively? And how, it sort of is in the right order, but it feels like it's not. It feels like we've jumped back again. Because there are bits in this I'm really liking. There's some nice bits of storytelling. There's some nice little bits of scenes, but I just feel like I just want to pull it all in a blender and reorganize everything and do this in a different way. I'm really liking some of this. I'm hearing this as an audio piece, but maybe with some quite extreme adaptation in places, because I'm struggling with it as writ in the way the story is structured. I'm struggling with some of that. But yeah, thoughts from the room about that before we go on. We've got another couple of scenes to do. Rachael.
The writer, I think he's written she's. I really wish there was some element, some elements that we saw of in Cornelia with this great, indignation or something like that. I don't know, the character, because Julia is also in this. I think this Julia might be Julia the Elder, or it's whochamacallit, Julia, the other Julia, who's Caesar's, who might be Caesar's daughter, who is married to Pompey. But if it's Augustus's daughter, then she was known to get up to her own stuff and her own trouble. And they all have, historically, I think they all have pretty independent voices, and he's made them tone down a little into what might be more I don't know, acceptable behavior in a certain way. You know what I mean, like for the period, like he did. I don't know how to say it in a way that really says what I want to say, but there's just so much modesty and almost patient Griselle likeness.
Oh yeah. I think that's one of the big problems with what's going on here, because Octavia is swallowing a lot of shit from Anthony here, and refusing to believe. I mean, there is something about that. People do that. They refuse to believe the bad things, even in the teeth of a huge amount of evidence. I think the nice thing is that the story doesn't go down the patient Griselle route, because history doesn't go that way. So at least we can go from that perspective. It's not heading in that direction. But at the moment, she's not taking on board. She's still hoping for the best. Rachael again. Then we will move forward.
Yeah, I also just wanted to say, because she's so modest, it's almost conflict avoidant. And I don't know how well that works for a story, because it's that avoidance of conflict sort of slows the pace or stops it at points. Like her conflict is definitely very internal, but there's not I don't know if there's the action I would like to see. I mean, that's, even though the first time reading Cornelia, I wasn't super big on it, but she turns around in the end and she determines to take this action in the outside world and really run with it.
Yeah. We'll see where it goes, because it can't last forever. So we'll see what we get out of the narrative. So we now go to Act 2, Scene 2. We have the return of Camilla and Julia, and we have the addition of Sylvia, whoever Sylvia is. So we think it starts with Julia speaking. That would make sense, but again, I didn't actually have a speech prefix to go from.
Oh dear Camilla, what a woeful sight just to behold the Empress' doleful state. Though others' burdens in our eyes seem light, death in my heart her grief doth intimate. Oh, what exceeding pity 'tis to see such noble virtues nursed in wisdom's breast, snared in the trap of humane misery, by others' baseness thus to be distressed.
But dame, the case is pitiful indeed, and such as may relent a flinty heart, a patient mind must stand her grace instead, till time and wisdom may his love convert.
But who dares tell Prince he goes aside?
His conscience best, if wisdom were his guide.
But they are great and may do what they will.
Great if much good, not great if they do ill.
But we must yield to what the prince will have.
He is no prince that is affection's slave.
Be what he will, his power is overstrong.
Heavens will not suffer sin to flourish long, and sure who list but to behold the end shall see Antonius dearly buy his lust. They never prosper long that lewdly spend their granted time, for God is not unjust.
Well, let them talk of virtue, those that list of patience, justice, and of constancy. For me, I think the Empress sure hath missed the only way to cure this malady. By living fame that list with pinching pain, and starve themselves with feeding fond conceit. Were I Octavia, I would entertain his double dealing with as fine a slight. I would nor weep nor wail, but soon return upon his head the wrongs he doth pretend. I would compel him, spite of him, to learn it were no jest a woman to offend. He feels not now the grief that makes her smart, but I know what would touch him to the heart.
But what force, what wit can Antony compel now to forego his late ill-placed love?
One nail, you see, another will expel, when nothing else can force the same to move. Should he that swims in streams of sweet content make his delight the agent of my pain? No, no, he rather were a president, how to requite him with the like again. Had I been touched with sense of inward grief, when such like chances had befallen me, or at their leisure hoped for relief, when I myself mought best myself set free, I had been dead for many years ago, or must have lived in endless misery, but I take order not to perish so. He shall care little that cares less than I.
But doth not Sylvia blush to disannul her own good name, her faith and constancy? Doth not she fear the wrath of heaven to pull upon her head for such impiety?
The wrath of heaven? Why, no, the heavens are just, and justice yields a man his true desert. Then, sith I do no injury, I trust not I, but he, for both our faults shall smart, and for my faith and constancy, no doubt I'll deal for that as well as others shall. But 'tis most strange to see you go about to praise the thing that works all women's fall. Why, constancy is that which marreth all. A weak conceit which cannot wrongs resist. A chain it is, which binds ourselves in thrall, and gives men scope to use as they list. For when they know that you will constant bind, small is their care, how often they do slide. Oh, if you would but mark the little map of my poor world, how in time's swift career I manage fortune, and with wit entrap 1,000 such as hold they these courses dear. Then would you say you want the art of love, for I fear nothing less than such relapse. The frowardness which I in men approve most troubles me for fear of afterclaps. And Lord, you cannot govern one alone, when I have many subject to my beck. I always pleasant, you still making moan, you full of fear, they dread my frowning check. Nor do I marvel, for this union breeds a loathing sure by nature unto things, and constancy the mind with quiet feeds, and settled quiet soon corruptions bring. Thus first we loathe, and then we straightways hate, when to one object we intend our mind. But I, with choice, do still renew the state of fainting love, and still new pleasures find. Look how a bee amongst the verdant fields from divers flowers extracts the pleasant time, which well compounded one sweet matter yields. So do I spend my pleasure-tasting time. I seek not grains of gold in barren ground, nor hope for fruit when harvest is one past. I like not where affection is not found. If any fall, I fly from him as fast. And surely who will taste the sweet of love must not be tied unto one poor conceit. One cannot work or half his practice prove upon one mind which will be dulled straight. But there must an emulation placed amongst favourites, a spur of swift desire, by letting one still see another graced, as though the one's deserts did so require. Two at a time I seldom entertain, nor one alone, but always, if I might, whiles any one to court me I detain, some other of the crew should be in sight, who mought behold how frankly I bestow both smiles and favours where it pleased me. They thinking this from his deserts to grow, will strive for deserve as well as he. Thus I abound with store of proffered love, with vowed faith, with presents and what not, when in the end one fortune all must prove, and all these favours must be clean forgot.
Will not all thy servants thee forsake, to see a rival such high favour gain?
If any jealous fool a surfeit take, then thus with art I bring him on amain. Such extraordinary favour falls on him unawares, which may new fire his mind, or else some trusty agent him recalls, in secret manner thereunto assigned. who tells him, as of friendship, I admire his discontent, and my unkindness blame. How I do oftentimes of him enquire, and still sigh awaits upon his name. This way I seldom fail, till at the last in folly's lap affection hath him lulled. From whence with fresh desire he flies as fast as if, poor fool, his wings had ne'er be pulled.
But since thy mind can never be so free, but that affection will on thee lay hold, that being partial, methinks should be a cause that others' love would soon wax cold.
Affection? No, I know not such a thought. That were a way to make myself a slave. I hate subjection, and will ne'er be brought what now I give at an other's hands to crave.
But yet I know someone above the rest is most beloved, but that you list to jest.
I love one most. I favour, love, and grace most everyone, whilst he in presence is. But being gone, look, who next comes in place? He's next my heart, my course is always this. And if that any chance to fall away shall loss of him thus vex me at the heart, no, grief, I never mean to be thy prey. My care and he together shall depart.
Of straying, falling, and I wot not what. So many words hath Sylvia spent in vain, that time and truth and purpose are forgot. To Antony, let us return again. We speak not of thy suitors, we complain of his untruth, that second unto none, in faithlessness of duty should remain, for ever constant unto one alone. Of his untruth, who hath his honour stained by base defiling of his marriage bed, who being vowed and by oath detained, is false forsworn, seduced, and fondly fled.
Why, all is one. No wedlock can compel, no law, no fear, no reason can constrain our minds, whilst we in nature's castles dwell. The pleasing course of nature to refrain, nature itself doth most delight in change. The heavens by motion do their music make, their lights by divers ways and courses range, and some of them new forms do always take. Their working power is never always one, and time itself least constant is of all. This earth we see, and all that lives thereon, without new change, into destruction fall. Nay, what is more, the life of all these things, their essence and perfection, doth consist in this same change, which to all creatures brings that pleasure which in life may not be missed. Sith then all creatures are so highly blessed to taste the sweet of life in often change, if we, which are the princes of the rest, should want the same, methinks 'twas very strange. For proof hereof I need not to untold. Such far-fetched secrets sense will make it plain. What pleasure hath the eye when you behold one only object? Is not rather pain? What sweet delight doth charmeth listening ear when only one tune it doth apprehend? In taste and smell like clothing doth appear, whose evidence no wit can reprehend, since nature then hath framed for the eye such sundry colours to delight the same, and for the ear such strange variety of sweetest tunes which do our music frame, such divers meats to please the dainty taste, so many savours to delight that sense, each other part with divers pleasures graced, least want of change more haply breed offence. What, shall the heart, the master of the rest, be more restrained than any savage beast? Shall not the heart, on whom all these depend, have greater scope than any of them all, to taste the pleasure of each pleasing friend? Faith, mine have had, and so it ever shall.
Peace, wicked woman, nay, foul monster, peace, whose very steps defile the guiltless earth. Stain of thy sex, thy poisoned speech surcease, that hath from sin and wickedness his birth. Is't not too much to glory in thy sin, lewd creature, that hast overlived all shame, emboldening others to persist therein, when thou thyself shouldst shun and fly the same? But thou must make the heavens a precedent for thy misdeeds, which on thy head will power eternal vengeance, unless thou repent and stay the force of mischief's dreadful shower. These moving things are constant in their kind, unto the end for which they were ordained, not mutable like thy ungodly mind, whose very thoughts with wickedness are stained. Our senses their peculiar objects have, whose store and number doth unto us show how reverently we should ourselves behave towards him whose bounty did the same bestow. O chastity, bright virtue, sacred flame, be never woman lovely wanting thee, be never woman wronged adorned with thee, be all disgraced that merit not thy name. Come, Julia, we have tarried here too long. Sylvia, adieu in faith, I wish thee well. No honest mind, I think, will do thee wrong. 'Tis punishment enough to hang in hell.
Great guide of this same golden flame, which days and times divideth, whose beauty ever is the same, and always one abideth. Why hast thou such a monster made, which always thus rebelleth, and which with new torments doth invade the heart wherein it dwelleth? Affection is the savage beast, which always us annoyeth, and never lets us live in rest, but still our good destroyeth. Affection's power who can suppress, and master when it sinneth? Of worthy praise deserves no less than he that kingdoms within it. Were Antony a prince indeed, that base affection scorned, him to bemoan we should not need, with vicious life deformed. With vicious life deformed. But this seducing virtue's foe, in whom all pleasure shineth, doth all our senses overthrow, and reason undermineth. Who doth not joy when from his neck the yoke of bondage slideth, and wish to live without the check of him that others guideth? Yet what more hard than to observe in such licentious pleasure the golden mean, which doth not swerve from sacred virtue's measure, who know and see the way of sin beset with dangers many, yet still persist and walk therein, as negligent as any. The mind with deepest wisdom fraught, the mischiefs in hand escheweth, and envy's craft doth bring to naught, affection's force subdueth. The haughty heart with courage bold, that death's pale face despiseth. The prince which scorns to be controlled, affection's power surpriseth. And having made itself a king, our mind with error feedeth, till we ourselves effect the thing which our destruction breedeth. The path of error is so graced with sweetest seeming pleasures, as if delighted therein placed the storehouse of her treasures. But who to prove the same our bantings, sinful maze included? In vain at last will surely repent, with shameful ends deluded, where virtue's little beaten ways with diverse troubles cumbered, direct her steps into true joys amongst the angels numbered.
And with those words of the chorus, that ends Act 2. Entirely a thematically connected scene, but plot-wise doesn't really add anything. It's interesting. We've just decided in the chat, if we're having a party, we're inviting Sylvia. We're not inviting Camilla. Camilla does not get invited to the good parties. Julia feels like a bit of a hanger-on. Feels like the kind of, is always there with Camilla, but it doesn't. It's just following her lead. But maybe could come out of her shell a bit. But not. Sylvia is putting forward a very different case in this scene. And again, it's this contrast between virtue and having fun, as I think I'm going to call it euphemistically. Some people have fun. Some people are virtuous. They're not selling virtue to me, has to be said. if this is a sales pitch for Virtue, not winning me over. Thoughts on the room before we do the final scene of the session, Rachael.
That I think it depends on which Julia it is. Like, I if they're referring to Augustus's, daughter, eventually, maybe it's meant to be where she's semi-lord to this. If they're playing into what happened, because Augustus educates his daughter very highly, and I think there's not a lot of room for her to move politically, except as somebody's wife. And later on, she's caught in an affair after she's married to Tiberius, and she's actually exiled. So if this is meant to, be some slut-shaming scene that has, and Julia's meant to be younger than Camilla or Octavia in this, some sort of, something about, if you what I'm saying? I don't even know what I'm saying, but it's just, some sort of extremist view that if somebody hears these things, they'll be lured into, being crushed by a patriarchal system in ancient Rome. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether Julia is supposed to be a person or just a generic handmaid of some description to Octavia or not. I quite like the idea of giving her more story, because Julia hasn't said a lot. She's been on stage for a couple of scenes and is very much there to just sort of prod occasionally when the conversation dies. I say there's stuff in here. I just haven't quite figured out how to grasp it and whoosh it into shape. Angela.
Just to refer back, we were mentioning before about, talking about patriarchal systems, that men are supposed to be the lead, they're the ones supposed to have all the honour. Octavia's got loads of honour, Antony's fallen. So just in case we forget that women are just as bad, in fact, even worse, they've given us the Sylvia scene to prove that women are 100 times worse.
Yeah, the overall scheme of the play is you do sort of feel that the Mr. Patriarchy is sort of standing over Samuel Brandon, just going, just to make sure you're clear on this point here. Let's bring a woman of ill repute, just to really hammer home that, because we're not bringing Cleopatra in. So can we have a sort of low-level substitute just to hammer home the point we've been making for the last couple of hours? Eric.
Yeah, and I find it interesting that it kind of does emphasize. I mean, aside from the Sylvia's weird thing, it kind of emphasizes the how women can have honor versus how men can have honor, which is apparently in more ways than one. For men at least, whereas for women it's only one way thus far, by being faithful to the death, it seems, which is a bit, I don't know.
But in the plus side, we do actually have a reasonably large number of women characters in the play actually saying dialogue and saying stuff. And in fact, in this scene, spending quite a lot of time, talking about different things. They're not great things, but there is a range of characters there. We need to unfortunately complete the session with Octavia and Act 3, Scene 1. Will Octavia have a little chat with her brother and see whether maybe some changing of mindness may occur here? Let's see where this scene goes. Octavia and Caesar.
O fierce desire, the spring of sighs and tears, relieved with want, impoverished with store, nursed with vain hopes, and said with doubtful fears, whose forth withstood, increased more and more. How doth thy pride thus torture my poor heart, whilst I for body's shadows entertain? And in the harvest of most high desert, do reap no fruit, but scorn and deep disdain. No fierce Hyrcanian forest doth possess so wild a tiger, nor no Libyan coast hath ever known a greedy lioness, robbed of the prey which she affected most, so beyond measure full of furious ire, as in the mind robbed of his chief desire. O destinies that draw the golden twine, which doth conduct the never-tired post, why have you lest unclose these eyes of mine, to see the field of all mine honour lost? In vain I sought a while to cure the wound with balm of hope, drawn from a constant mind, but now the truth is manifestly found. I hear, I see, I know, I feel. I find the shameful wrong, the scorn and high disdain, which faithless he most falsely doth pretend to power on me, whilst from despair in vain with constant hope my weakness I defend. O torment, worse than death's most bitter gall, worse than is found in that infernal place, to see another glory in my fall, to see another proud with my disgrace. Why dost thou stay, distressed Octavia? Die! Dead to all joys, let death thy torments end, who gave thee life. The same doth now deny, and to another his affection bend, another doth thy interest enjoy. And yet thou livest, and yet thou dost delay to calm with death the tempest of annoy, when to disgrace thy life doth thee betray. Die, dead Octavia! What? And basely die? Shall I sit down and yield myself to shame? Shall I content myself with wrongs? Not I. Revenge, Octavia, or thou art to blame. Die never unrevenged of such a wrong. My power is such that I may well prevail, and rather than I will endure it long, with fire and sword I will you both assail. My nature doth abhor to be thus used, my heart doth scorn such monstrous injury, my birth, my state, disdain to be abused, and I will deeply score thy perjury. Then grief give place a while unto disdain, mild pity make thee wings and fly away, and death withdraw thy hasty hand again, whilst with advantage I their debts repay. How now, Octavia, whither wilt thou fly? Not what thou mayest, but do thou what is just. Shall these same hands attempt impiety? I may, I can, I will, I ought, I must revenge this high disgrace. This Caesar will, birth, nature, reason, all require the same. Yet virtue will not have me to do ill. Yield, all things yield to virtue's sacred name. How then? Even thus, with patience make thee strong. The heavens are just, let them revenge thy wrong. Cruel to me, self-wronging Antony, thy folly shall not make Octavia's sin. I'll be as true in virtuous constancy as thou art false and infamous therein. I'll be as famous for a virtuous wife as thou notorious for so lewd a life.
As is a sweet pearl dropping silver shower, which some mild cloud down from the shady skies upon the parched flowery fields doth power, such is Octavia's sight to Caesar's eyes. Hath Jason's travail gained the golden fleece, or hath Octavia failed of her intent? Is Antony within the bounds of Greece, or doth he stay at Blankborg malcontent?
O Caesar, how my now distracted mind unites itself to render worthy thanks! But woe is me! No way, no means I find, no hope to hide Antonius' lustful pranks. I him besought, by all that words might say, by this same ring that knit the Gordian knot, by all the rites past on our wedding day, but all in vain, for all is now forgot. Look how some proud, hard-hearted, mighty rock, which makes the sea a mirror for his face, repels the waters with a churlish stroke, which mildly strive his body to embrace. So his indurate mind rejects my words, and rudely makes me and my hopes forlorn. His flinty heart naught but repulse affords, and my deserts return me naught but scorn.
Were not Octavia precious in my sight, whose will withstood what I did most desire, the bloody lines had not been now to write of such revenge as his lewd deeds require. But worthy branch of brave Octavius' line, in Caesar's thoughts live and predominate. Yours is my kingdom, and what else is mine? Myself, my sceptre, and my royal state. Then sith I ever granted your request, and let you prove all means his love to win, since you and we in vain have done our best to stay his foot out of the sink of sin. Now, for my sake, if I may aught prevail, for dead Octavius never stained worth, for dear Anchares' love and your avail, excuse no more his faithlessness henceforth. Yield but to this, live here and banish care, forget his name, that traitor like is fled, live like a queen, remember who you are, and let me rouse him from his leman's bed. Leave you this house of his, and what is his, stand of yourself, since he intends your fall. Dishonour not your name with others miss, if love cannot recall him, terror shall.
Dishonour not my name! O Caesar, no, my misery is not of that degree, wrought by my follow or forced by my foe, which mought attribute that disgrace to me. 'Tis pain and grief to bear and suffer wrong, but shame and sin to him that doth the same. True patience can mildly suffer long, where rage and fury do our lives defame. 'Tis fortitude which scorns the force of wrong, and temperance not to be moved withal. 'Tis constancy makes us continue strong, and wisdom's work to free ourselves from thrall. But I am wronged, you say, and 'tis base fear, without revenge to suffer injury. It's cowardice unworthy wrongs to bear, and madness to give way to treachery. Well then, revenge. But what? Octavia's wrong? Of whom? Of Antony? And who is he? Ah, my dear lord, that will return ere long, and hate his fall, and be most true to me. If not, I'll then revenge. But how? With death? He is myself, his grief procures my pain. With spoil and loss? Oh no, that were not good. By certain loss to hope for doubtful gain. How then? Be false as he is most untrue. One wound doth not another's balm procure. Flame is not quenched with flame, but doth renew, a double force not easy to endure. Whence springs revenge? From malice and disdain. Then speak not of it, for it is in vain. Earth open first thine undivided jaws, and swallow me in thine infernal womb, ere willingly I swerve from virtue's laws. Truth, my love's childbed was, truth be his tomb.
Were Antony as loyal in his love as he is false, forsworn, and fondly bent, then would I think it reason to approve and highly praise your virtuous intent. But sith he willingly doth you forsake, and wilfully persists to do us wrong, high honour doth require our swords to take, most just revenge which we may not prolong.
His falsehood does not malice raise in me, but rather shows how frail man's nature is, an argument which bids me careful be, lest I myself should likewise do amiss.
Can my persuasions then no whit prevail? Can my request no thought of yielding find? Can you esteem of him whose truth doth fail? There are few women of Octavia's mind.
Too few, I grant, and therefore am I such. and though alone, yet will persevere still. We imitate the multitude too much. Most do as do the most, and most do ill. The number of the virtuous is so small that few delight to tread that lonely way. But wisdom's heirs are jealous of their fall, and think it shameful all should go astray. A virtuous act seems strange in some men's sight, because they seldom saw the like before. But noble minds are careful of the right, and others' errors make them fear them all. How senselessly we sleep in folly's bed! How few there are indeed! How all would seem wife, honest, just, wise, honest, just! How fondly are we led to use the least which we do most esteem! Then ought a prince to fear much more than any, lest his fault be a precedent to many.
And is it virtue then to be misused?
To give no cause why we should be abused.
Do but consent, I'll act and bear the blame.
To give consent to sin is sin and shame.
And is it sin to punish lewdness then?
Still sin to exult upon repentant men.
But he persists in hateful treachery.
True love may spring from pardoned injury.
How may they love whom worlds of distance part?
He is not far that's lodged within the heart.
But time and absence will consume all love.
Sooner the heart which doth those passions prove.
Not so, no mortal dart near love is found.
But we are mortal which enter the wound, endure the wound.
Yet leave this house, if not his love deny.
First let this soul out of his lodging fly.
Can nature then no privilege obtain? Are his deserts in such abundant store? Must all I do be fruitless and in vain? Antonius be your guide, I say no more.
If that my words so much offend your mind, O silent death, thou my best refuge art. O break my heart, for Caesar is unkind. In silent grief, O break my wounded heart.
What? In a trance? O sister, sister dear, light of my life, dear model of my soul, hurt not yourself, O banish needless fear. Woe, woe to me that did you thus control. O dear Octavia, I spake but to prove how far your thoughts were bent with jealousy, to see if malice had exiled your love, to find how you esteemed of Antony.
O Caesar, more beloved than these same eyes, more than the light which glads my tired life, do not my truly loving mind despise. Kill not my heart with this your factious strife. Alas, 'tis not his house that I respect, his wealth or tripartite high regiment. I would the world's great treasury neglect, rather than hazard Caesar's discontent. 'Tis not affection that enchains my mind, or partial love that makes my faith so strong. Too well, alas, myself abused I find, and this my heart too sensible of wrong. And what is worse, this wrong so full of scorn, as mought incense the mildest mind alive. To see my lord a graceless queen suborn, and my dishonour carelessly contrive. Nay, worse than that, if worse than that may be, no creature ever felt the like disgrace. Each wronged wight may hope for remedy, my shameful story nothing may deface. For if my lord would cure this wound again, yet woe is me, the scar will still remain. In these respects, perhaps I could be brought to strike revenge as deep as any could. I want no means whereby it might be wrought, for many thousands wish it if I would, and what is more, myself can scarcely let. But Caesar's sword for me would pay the debt. But when I find in closet of my heart how I have pawned my faith to Antony, how I have vowed that naught but death should part from him my love and my fidelity, when that I see the vulgar people's eyes make my designs the pattern of their deeds, how with my thoughts they strive to sympathise, and how my miss their certain error breeds, when that I find how my departure were the opening of a gate to cruel wars, then Atlas-like I am constrained to bear a hated hell, though not the happy stars. I'd rather die than witness with these eyes, in mortal wounds and bloody lines enrolled, the argument of my calamities, whom proud mischance unjustly thus controlled. Shall never two such noble emperors their dearest lives adventure for my sake? Shall never for my sake such mighty powers the doubtful chance of battle undertake? Shall never tongue recount Octavia's error, an instance of his faithless perjury? I'd rather die the world unspotted mirror, and with my faith surmount his injury.
Well, sister, then I see that constancy is sometimes seated in a woman's breast. Your strange designs, even from your infancy, can never without wonder be expressed.
I know not what you think of womankind, that they are faithless and unconstant ever. For me, I think all women strive to find the perfect good, and therein to persevere, even as a torch or sulphur-powdered light, whiles any nourishment maintains his flame, fails not to burn, and burning shineth bright, till art obscure or force put out the same. Such is the mind in woman's breast contained, with the true zeal of virtue's love inflamed. We may be dead, but living never stained. We may be wronged, but never rightly blamed.
Well, for yourself proceed as you think best. Time and the heavens must see these wrongs redressed. So, midway through Act 3, and even with Brother coming in to make the case for maybe we should do the bastard, still Octavia's saying no, I will take the moral high ground. Moral high ground. That's what we're going for, people. This may change next time. I'm just going to put that out now. That there will be a change. A change is coming. Definitely going to come.
She's been hanging out with Camilla too much.
Yeah, you can tell, can't you? It's a sort of echo chamber going on there. I mean, all the praise she was getting earlier. I mean, you know, you thought maybe her head was screwed on, but maybe actually with all this stuff coming back from her, you know, you whose designs, you that enforce with, etc. Maybe it's all gone. It's all gone a bit wrong. There's some nice things in some of these speeches. I'm quite liking the way some of them are constructed. Octavia's sort of getting slightly more complex speeches here. You can sort of hear the cogs turning of going, shall I do this? Shall I do that? Shall I do this? Oh, maybe I should do that. Shall I die? No, I'm not going to die. I'm going to just throw disdain at him. I'm going to use disdain. Yeah. I quite like the fact that she sort of just turned away from the whole idea. Maybe I should kill myself in despair, which would have been really tedious. So I quite like that to a degree. Thoughts from the room, because I'm working really hard here. Rachael.
I'll just wait until final thoughts.
We're at final thoughts.
Okay. Now I was gonna say, there's some slight change, you know, but I think because we're almost halfway through that, I'm asking myself, is this enough change? You know, and Cornelia, it's like we've had a lot of repetition in this play of hammering it home that he's with Cleopatra and he's cheating, but it doesn't seem like there's that much change on that front. And Cornelia, there was a lot of change going on in that. There was somebody coming in every scene telling her new news, and you know, she would be renewed each time with this fervor to, you know, do something or not knowing what to do, but there was always some new woe to be heaped on. This just seems to be the same thing again and again. And at the same time, the way that, you know, Antony and Cleopatra, and even Sylvia, you know, with the way that this play is slut shaming her, that it's setting up like this moral good and evil. And it does make me think of Wounds of Civil War, because there wasn't really anybody who was bad or good in that, just people who were striving for power, and Scylla in the end comes out on top. Yeah, and also just the characterization that the playwright has chosen of modesty for these Roman women. Any like the amount of ambitious women who were so close to these emperors was so much, so that this modesty is being played very sincerely and not as a political tool. I kind of mourn like the going with this straightforward way and not this complex way that having to live through a man to have power, or even to have money or something like that isn't as much of a thing, that it's not played up modesty or something like that is not ringing with me.
Yeah, I mean the journey Octavia's having here is no, Antony, and Antony's fine. Anthony's fine. No, stop telling me these lies about Antony. Okay, okay, it's true, but I'm not moving out. Which is basically where we've got to now. Is like, I'm not doing any. Don't go and kill him. Just ignore him. He'll go away. So it's a sort of different phases of denial, and that's sort of interesting. That's going on here. But yeah, the overall, shall we say, moral structure of the play is a bit of a problem. That it's quite hard to do much with. Angela, we'll call this final thoughts.
Well, I think we're slightly underplaying the consistency of Octavia's character, because we begin with her being somebody who's very, very moderate. She says, this is all really gorgeous, but you shouldn't, be too happy. And then the next thing we hear, that she is absolutely determined that there will not be a battle, that men will not die, and if there's anything she can do, she's going to stop that, because that is the role of, the virtuous woman. And really that's part of what she says to Caesar now as well. Under no circumstances is there going to be blood, because she knows it's not just a matter of like one sword and another one. It's going to be the whole army. It's all over again. So it is, I think, in that respect, her virtues, her willingness to, because she will not set a bad example, she's prepared to walk the straight and narrow, and she won't leave his house. She's got masses. She says, I could fight him myself. I've got enough. She sent him hundreds of men, if you remember, as a gift earlier. So, she's got no shortage of her own stuff, sort of thing. I love the way that, Cleopatra says, give me all these countries, and so Antony just gives them. But anyway, so she does seem to me, or the play is really building up this sense of her being almost godlike, which is how we started with Camilla talking to her like she is this, virtually a divine being. It's a bit off-putting though. It's not very warm and cuddly.
No, it's the same problem you sort of have with Jesus in mystery plays. That there's this sort of the remove that you can't get into the head. There's a bit more of, I think you are getting a little bit more into the thought process, and to hold this virtuous course does require some inner struggle that we are getting here, and that's quite interesting. I'd like to focusing back in on actually, yes, that stopping people from fighting because of actually the bigger world concerns. Actually, that this isn't just two people fighting. It's a lot of people fighting. So that's I like that thought. Eric, any final thoughts?
Yeah, it's doing so many weird things, although it's kind of just hammering home the point of, Virtuous Octavia, she's so amazing. At the beginning, I was like, oh, this is Wonder Woman. It just felt very sort of like she's doing everything right, except for what Antony needs, who obviously is not here to sort of defend himself or whatever. But I think the interesting bit was the reaction with the messenger, and sort of with her brother as well, sort of going, this is the, you're lying, and then the denial escalates to something else. The kind of, I'm gonna I promised I won't torture you or anything, but I don't really believe you. And then, in this scene, we've seen her denial turn into, well, I'm not, whatever, I don't care, I'm going to stay here, kind of thing. I don't know, it's just interesting nuances and internal conflict as well.
And again, getting more to say than the chap in the room, which is nice. It's nice that happens sometimes. Okay. I think it's fair to say we haven't quite got our feet underneath the table of this one. But we've got one more session to try and get deeper into the text as we complete it. As we complete Act 3, go into Act 4 and 5, and see what happens when Octavia responds to other provocations, shall we say. Without too many spoilers being addressed there. All that remains is to thank all the wonderful readers. Thank you all for your wonderful reading. Thank you very much, and goodbye. I may, I can, I will, I ought, I must.